in that process, how do you not get to a point of just insane cynicism and go like, I just hate it all, and just drop it instead of engaging with it and going on that journey in that process?
Well, maybe you do just drop it and there's cynicism, and maybe that's for a number of years, right? So this is interesting. God is dead and we have killed him, says atheists, or says Friedrich Nietzsche, his famous parable about a madman, right? He finds his way into this market square proclaiming, I seek God, and everyone's laughing at him. Where is God? He says, I'll tell you, God's dead and we've killed him. And so that might be an important phase for somebody to go through. But God being dead doesn't necessarily mean God's not a reality. God doesn't exist. There's many frameworks for understanding God, and many of them perhaps deserve defeat, And so that's why I like to say there's a wisdom in atheism. There really is. It's wise to reject that which should be rejected. We can debate that, certainly, but the popular understanding of God, for example, tends to be the question is whether or not there is a being out there somewhere, with the proper name God, and it's sort of worse form, Okay. And for a lot of people, there's just simply no evidence for that. And rejecting that might be a positive step for them. And often they reject it on moral grounds, right? So that's sort of interesting. There's a moral inclination to reject something which seems, for some, morally reprehensible. And you might stay in that phase for a long time. So there's an interesting book, actually, by a philosopher named Richard Kearney. And his book really was sort of undergirding a lot of the ideas in this book, which are fleshed out in a much more personal way. But the name of his book is Anatheism. And not theism, not atheism, but anatheism, A-N-A. And this prefix, ana, means a returning to or rediscovery. So the subtitle for his book is Returning to God After God.
Interesting.
Right? So for a lot of people, God is dead. And yes, there's certain understandings of God that perhaps need to die, and that's okay. But others ask, is there a way of returning to God after God? And if so, what does that journey look like? And to what understanding of God does it actually lead? So Kearney talks about anatheism being a type of way, a type of path, that people travel. And as I read that book and as I thought through some of those themes, a lot of people travel that path. You don't just necessarily reject what you've been given and stop there. I mean, people do that. You can say, okay, one understanding of God has been deconstructed, therefore now atheism is the next conclusion. I think that's rather impulsive, but I do think atheism is it can be an important phase in somebody's journey. It certainly was for a number of these thinkers who went through phases or years of atheism, but then wrapped around to something deeper. The question is, can you do that? And if so, what does that look like?